Drill Sergeant Crax stomped across the training grounds of the Galactic Defense Academy, his forelegs creating a distinctive rhythm that sent first-year cadets scrambling to attention. His leathery skin, a mottled gray-green, glistened with sweat under the twin suns of Nexus Prime. 6 years as the Academy's most feared instructor had given him an almost supernatural ability to spot weakness, and today, his compound eyes were fixed on the newest batch of recruits, particularly the sole human among them. "What in the 7 systems do we have here?" Crax bellowed, towering over the human cadet. At 6'2", the human named Jack was tall by Earth standards but stood nearly 2 feet shorter than the drill sergeant. Did Earth send us their runt? Or is this really the best they have to offer? Jack stood at perfect attention, eyes forward, shoulders squared. Unlike the other alien cadets whose postures reflected their various physiologies, Jack's stance carried a rigidity that caught Crax's attention. "No response, Earthmeat? Perhaps your species lacks both stature and courage." Crax circled the human, noting with irritation that Jack's pulse remained steady. Most recruits, even the 4-armed Palaxians or the thick-skinned Droverans, showed visible signs of fear during their first encounter with Sergeant Crax. "Permission to speak, Drill Sergeant," Jack said, voice clear and controlled. "Granted," Crax spat, stopping directly in front of the human. "Earth selects candidates based on adaptability and learning capacity, not physical attributes alone, Drill Sergeant." Jack replied. A ripple of nervous clicking and whistles spread through the other 23 cadets. No one spoke to Drill. "Sergeant Crax like that on day 1, is that right?" Crax's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Then demonstrate this superior adaptability, human. The obstacle course, now." The infamous Academy obstacle course had been designed to test the limits of every known sentient species. It featured gravity wells, toxic vapor zones, extreme temperature variations, and climbing walls that reached 15 meters high. The current record for a first attempt completion was 38 minutes, held by a Corvan with natural climbing, abilities and respiratory filters. "The entire course, Drill Sergeant?" Jack asked. "What's wrong? Afraid your adaptability isn't up to the task?" Crax's voice dripped with mockery. "No, Drill Sergeant, just confirming the parameters." Jack approached the starting line while the other cadets were ordered to observe. Crax expected the human to fail spectacularly. His species was known for endurance but lacked the specialized adaptations of the other galactic races. "Begin," Crax barked, starting the chronometer on his wrist device. What happened next would become Academy legend. Jack moved with a fluidity that seemed impossible for a species with only 4 limbs and no apparent genetic enhancements. He navigated the gravity wells by calculating momentum precisely, rolled through toxic vapor zones while holding his breath for astonishing periods, and conquered the temperature variations through controlled breathing techniques. But it was at the climbing wall where Crax's mandibles fell open in shock. Instead of struggling up the sheer surface designed to challenge even the most adept climbers, Jack analyzed the pattern of handholds for precisely 7 seconds, then ascended the wall using a technique no instructor had seen before, a diagonal, traversing pattern that minimized energy expenditure while maximizing speed. Whispers spread among the observing cadets as Jack cleared obstacle after obstacle. Crax found himself checking and rechecking his chronometer as the human's time approached the halfway point of the current record. "Impossible," Crax muttered as Jack emerged from the final challenge, a water-filled tunnel designed to simulate emergency evacuation from a damaged spacecraft. The human was drenched but breathing evenly, his eyes clear and focused as he returned to stand at attention before the drill sergeant. "Course completed, Drill Sergeant," Jack announced. The chronometer showed 1942, less than half the previous record. For the first time in his 6-year tenure, Drill Sergeant Crax was speechless. The following day, the other cadets kept their distance from Jack in the mess hall. It wasn't hostility that kept them away, but a mixture of awe and uncertainty. Humans were relatively new to the Galactic Alliance, having joined only 15 years earlier. Most species knew of them only through official briefings and cultural exchange programs, which hardly captured the reality of having one as a fellow cadet. Jack sat alone, methodically consuming a nutrition pack calibrated for human physiology. Unlike the specialized feeding apparatus used by many alien species, his simple approach to eating seemed almost primitive, yet there was nothing primitive about his performance yesterday. "Mind if I join you?" Jack looked up to see Trill, a Meridian cadet with translucent blue skin that pulsed with bioluminescence when she spoke. Meridians were known for their analytical minds and diplomatic skills. "Please do," Jack replied with a nod. Trill settled, her gelatinous form onto the seat across from him. "Everyone's talking about what you did yesterday. The instructors are reviewing the recording footage. Some think you cheated." Jack raised an eyebrow. "How would I cheat on an obstacle course I'd never seen before?" "That's what makes it interesting." Trill's skin rippled with curiosity patterns. "Drill Sergeant Krax has requested a full medical scan of you. He thinks you might have illegal enhancements." Jack smiled slightly. "I'm completely unmodified. Standard human, military grade." "Military grade?" Trill's central eye widened. Before Jack could respond, the mess hall doors slammed open and Drill, Sergeant Krax, marched in, accompanied by the Academy's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Plex, a Vantari with 8 specialized appendages for conducting medical procedures. "Cadet Jack," Krax bellowed. "Medical bay, now!" The human calmly disposed of. His nutrition pack nodded respectfully to Trill and followed the officers out. The mess hall erupted in murmurs as soon as they left. In the medical bay, Jack submitted to a battery of tests without complaint. Dr. Plex moved his scanning appendages over the human's body, chittering softly as data flowed into his neural interface. "Well?" Krax demanded after nearly an hour of testing. Dr. Plex's head tendrils twisted in confusion. "No enhancements detected, Sergeant. No genetic modifications beyond the standard immunological upgrades all spacefaring species receive. His muscle density is high but within normal human parameters. Neural activity is interesting, but not artificially enhanced." "That's impossible," Krax insisted. "No unmodified cadet has ever completed that course in under 20 minutes on their first attempt." "Yet he did," Dr. Plex replied simply. "The only anomaly I can detect is an unusual efficiency in his cognitive processing during problem solving. When presented with a challenge, his neural pathways organize information differently than most species we've studied." Jack remained silent throughout this exchange, standing at relaxed attention, eyes forward. "What explains your performance yesterday, Cadet?" Krax finally addressed him directly. "Training and preparation, Drill Sergeant," Jack replied. "What training could possibly prepare you for obstacles you'd never encountered?" Jack's expression remained neutral. "Earth's military academies have embraced the unknown as a training parameter since first contact. We don't train for specific obstacles. We train to adapt to any obstacle." Krax's compound eyes narrowed. "Report to Specialized Training Field 3 at 600 tomorrow. You've earned yourself some personal attention, human." After Jack was dismissed, Krax turned to Dr. Plex. "I want everything we have on human military training protocols. There's something they're not telling the Alliance." Dr. Plex's tendrils waved thoughtfully. "Perhaps it's not what they're hiding, but what we've overlooked. Humans evolved on a death world with thousands of predators and extreme environmental variations. Their entire evolutionary history is one long adaptation to the unexpected." "That doesn't explain how he solved the climbing wall pattern in seconds," Krax countered. "That's a mathematical sequence designed by Arcturian logicians specifically to challenge pattern recognition." "Yet he recognized it," Dr. Plex said simply. "Perhaps we should reconsider our assumptions about human cognitive capabilities." "Krax," snorted dismissively. "Tomorrow we'll see what he's really made of. No human beats my course without consequences." As Krax stalked out, Dr. Plex reviewed the neural scans again. The human's brain had lit up in fascinating ways during problem-solving exercises, not more intensely than other species, but with unique pathway connections that the doctor had never observed before. Something about human cognition was fundamentally different, and for the first time in decades, Dr. Plex felt a surge of genuine scientific curiosity. The Specialized Training Field 3 was actually an environmental simulation chamber, capable of recreating conditions from any known inhabited world in the galaxy. At precisely 600, Jack arrived to find not only Drill Sergeant Cracks waiting, but also Academy Commander Lorne, a towering Denebrian whose crystalline exoskeleton refracted the morning light into rainbow patterns across the walls. "Cadet Jack reporting as ordered, Drill Sergeant," Jack announced, snapping to attention. Commander Lorne studied the human with 6 iridescent eyes. "At ease, Cadet. I've reviewed your performance records. Impressive, to say the least." "Thank you, Commander," Jack replied, shifting to parade rest. "Don't thank me yet." Lorne's voice resonated with harmonics that suggested amusement. "Sergeant Cracks has designed a special program for you today. Consider it an opportunity to demonstrate whether yesterday's performance was skill or luck." Cracks stepped forward, his mandibles clicking with barely suppressed anticipation. "The chamber has been programmed with a multiphasic survival scenario. Unlike the obstacle course, this isn't about speed. It's about endurance and decision-making under pressure." Jack nodded once, face impassive. "Understood, Drill Sergeant." "The average survival time for this program is 12 minutes, Commander Lorne added. "The record is 47 minutes, held by Major Dex of the Procyon Elite Guards. The scenario begins in a Caladian tar swamp and evolves based on your actions," Cracks explained. "The environmental shifts are unpredictable even to us. The simulation ends when you are incapacitated or signal surrender." Jack removed his standard-issue jacket, leaving him in a fitted black t-shirt and uniform pants. "Any equipment allowed, Drill Sergeant?" "What you're wearing." "Nothing more," Cracks replied with visible satisfaction. "May I remove my boots, sir?" Jack asked. The question caught both aliens off guard. "Why would you want to do that?" Cracks demanded. "Better sensory input through the feet can provide tactical advantages in certain environments," Jack explained simply. Commander Lorne's crystalline form shimmered with interest. "Granted." Jack efficiently removed his boots and socks, placing them neatly aside. Several observing officers exchanged glances. Most species in the Academy considered their protective footwear essential equipment. "Begin on my mark," Cracks announced, moving to the control station. 3, 2, 1, mark." The chamber transformed instantly. The sterile training room disappeared, replaced by a gloomy landscape of bubbling black tar pools and twisted vegetation. The air turned thick with humidity and the stench of sulfur. Gravity increased by approximately 20%, and the temperature rose to uncomfortable levels. Jack immediately dropped to a crouch, eyes scanning the environment methodically. Instead of moving away from the nearest tar pool as most cadets did, he approached it carefully, studying its surface patterns. He picked up a small piece of vegetation and tossed it onto the tar, observing how it sank. "What is he doing?" one of the observing officers whispered. "Learning the environment," Commander Lorne replied. "Notice how he's testing rather than assuming." Jack began moving through the swamp with deliberate care, each step placed with precise calculation. When a predatory vine lashed out from beneath the surface of a tar pool, he didn't leap back in surprise as most cadets did. He pivoted and rolled, analyzing the vine's movement pattern before continuing. As the minutes ticked past, the environment began its programmed shifts. The swamp transitioned into a crystalline desert with razor-sharp formations and dangerously thin air. Without missing a beat, Jack adjusted his breathing pattern and modified his movement style to conserve oxygen. 20 minutes, Cracks announced, mandibles clicking in irritation. Initiating Level 2 environmental hazards. Suddenly, the crystal formations began to vibrate at frequencies designed to disorient most sentient nervous systems. Jack immediately pressed his bare feet firmly against the ground, closed his eyes for 3 seconds, then resumed movement with a slightly altered gait that seemed to counteract the vibrational interference. "He's using the vibrations to map the terrain," Commander Lorne observed with undisguised fascination. "I've never seen that technique before." 40 minutes, Cracks growled as Jack navigated through a series of increasingly difficult environmental challenges. Initiating Final Phase. The environment shifted one last time, transforming into the one scenario that no previous cadet had survived for more than a few minutes, a microgravity field filled with toxic gas clouds and electromagnetic pulses that disrupted neural function. Jack immediately adapted, using the minimal gravity to his advantage rather than fighting it. His movements became fluid and three-dimensional as he navigated between gas clouds, using controlled exhalations to subtly propel himself when necessary. 50 minutes, Commander Lorne announced. That's enough. End program. The chamber faded back to its neutral state. Jack landed lightly on his feet, breathing slightly elevated but otherwise showing minimal signs of exertion. He straightened to attention, waiting. Drill Sergeant Crack stood motionless, his alien features difficult for most to read. But those who knew him well could see he was stunned into silence for the second time in 2 days. Most impressive, Cadet, Commander Lorne said, stepping forward. It seems humanity has been modest about their capabilities. Jack simply nodded. We try to let our actions speak for us, Commander. News of Jack's performance in the environmental chamber spread throughout the academy within hours. By the next morning, cadets from all species were watching him with new interest. The human's solitary routine was disrupted by curious glances and whispered conversations that stopped whenever he approached. In tactical class, Instructor Vex, a retired Arcturian fleet commander with a reputation for intellectual brutality, singled Jack out immediately. Cadet Jack. Vex's metallic voice resonated through the lecture hall. Since you've demonstrated such remarkable adaptive capabilities, perhaps you'd care to explain how you would counter a draconian pincer maneuver with limited resources. The draconian pincer maneuver was notorious for its complexity, a tactical problem usually reserved for third-year cadets. Jack stood facing the holographic display that Instructor Vex had activated. The conventional counter would be a dispersal pattern to minimize losses while establishing communication disruption nodes here and here. Jack indicated points on the display. However, that approach assumes equivalent technological capabilities. And, if your technology is inferior, Vex pressed, mandibles twitching with interest. Then you change the nature of the engagement, Jack replied without hesitation. Draconians rely heavily on hierarchical command structures. Their formations are mathematically precise but inflexible once committed. A smaller force could exploit that by creating environmental interference. Even something as simple as particulate matter in space creates sensor shadows that disrupt their coordination. Vex's compound eyes narrowed. You're suggesting using the environment itself as a weapon? Not exactly, Instructor. I'm suggesting that the battlefield itself is a participant in combat, not merely a stage. Understanding this allows a seemingly weaker force to multiply its effectiveness. The lecture hall fell silent. Even the most advanced tactical students were scribbling notes furiously. An unorthodox perspective, Vex finally commented. And one with historical precedent in numerous conflicts. Well stated, Cadet. As Jack took his seat, he noticed Drill Sergeant Cracks watching from the back of the lecture hall, his expression unreadable. Later that day in the physical training complex, Cracks approached Jack as he completed his exercise routine, a flowing sequence of movements that combined strength building with flexibility that had several alien cadets attempting to mimic his techniques. A word, Cadet, Cracks said, his voice unusually subdued. Jack followed the drill sergeant to a quiet corner of the training area. The Academy Command has taken an interest in your performance. Cracks began, studying Jack carefully. They wish to understand how a first-year human cadet possesses skills that our most advanced trainees struggle to develop. I'm not exceptional. By human standards, Drill Sergeant, Jack replied. Our training emphasizes cognitive flexibility and pattern recognition from an early age. That's not the complete truth. Cracks's compound eyes fixed on Jack's face. I've reviewed Earth's public education records. Standard human training doesn't produce your level of performance. Jack was silent for a moment, then nodded slightly. You're correct, Drill Sergeant. I received specialized training. Military intelligence? Cracks pressed. Not exactly. Jack hesitated, then continued. I was part of an experimental education program called Adaptive Response Initiative. It was developed after humanity's first contact with the Droveran fleet. Understanding flickered across Cracks's alien features. The Droveran first contact had been notoriously tense, with the technologically superior aliens treating humans as primitive curiosities rather than equals. Your species felt threatened, Crax stated. Our species recognized a need, Jack corrected respectfully. The galaxy is filled with civilizations thousands of years ahead of us technologically. We couldn't match that gap quickly, so we focused on our natural advantages instead. Human adaptability, Crax mused. Yes, sir. The ARI program identified children with strong adaptive cognitive patterns and enhanced those natural capabilities through specialized training. Not genetic modification or technological augmentation, just training the human mind to reach its full potential. Crax was silent for a long moment. How many of you are there? The program accepts 50 students per year. I'm from the 3rd cohort. So there are perhaps 200 humans with your capabilities in the entire alliance? Crax seemed troubled by this revelation. For now, Jack nodded. The program is expanding as we refine the training methods. Crax's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep thought among his species. The question that remains, Cadet, is why Earth would send one of their specially trained humans to our academy without notification. Jack met the drill sergeant's compound gaze steadily. To learn, sir, and perhaps to teach as well. The following week brought the dreaded Zero-G combat trials, notoriously difficult exercises that tested cadets' abilities to function in the disorienting environment of weightlessness. The training chamber had been configured with floating obstacles, weapon platforms, and various gravitational anomalies. Most first-year cadets struggled with basic movement in zero gravity, often becoming disoriented or suffering from motion sickness. Even species evolved for space travel typically required several sessions to achieve proficiency. Jack entered the chamber with the rest of his training group. Among them was Brill, a Centaurian with natural magnetic sensing abilities that should have given him a significant advantage in detecting the gravitational fluctuations. Begin exercise, Crax's voice boomed through the communication system. Your objective is to retrieve the target object and return to your starting position. You have 15 minutes. The target, a small spherical device, floated at the center of the chamber, surrounded by randomly moving obstacles and periodic gravitational pulses that could send an unwary cadet spinning out of control. As the other cadets pushed off from the walls with varying degrees of control, Jack remained at his starting position, eyes closed in apparent concentration. Several instructors exchanged glances, wondering if the human was experiencing fear or hesitation. What is Cadet Jack doing? Commander Lorne asked from the observation deck. Mapping the chamber, Dr. Plex replied, monitoring the human's neural patterns on a specialized display. His spatial awareness centers are highly active. He's listening to the movement of air currents and feeling micro-vibrations through his contact points with the wall. After precisely 23 seconds, Jack's eyes opened. He pushed off with extraordinary precision, using the minimal force required to send himself on an indirect trajectory toward the target. Unlike the other cadets who were making frequent corrections to their movement, Jack made only 3 small adjustments throughout his entire approach. Remarkable efficiency, Dr. Plex commented. He's calculating trajectories in real time and using the gravitational anomalies to his advantage rather than fighting against them. As Jack neared the central area where the target floated, a powerful, gravitational pulse, stronger than any the cadets had encountered in training, swept through the chamber. It was an unannounced test element, designed to challenge even the most prepared students. The pulse sent most cadets tumbling helplessly. Brill, despite his magnetic sensing, barely managed to grab a stationary handhold to stabilize himself. But Jack did something unexpected. He completely relaxed his body into the pulse, allowing it to carry him in an arc that brought him even closer to the target. Did he just? Commander Lorne's crystalline structure flickered in surprise. Yes, Crax confirmed, mandibles clicking rapidly. He used our trap to improve his position. Jack reached the target sphere, secured it, and then used a combination of subtle movements and the chamber's own gravitational patterns to return to his starting position, all while the other cadets were still struggling to reorient themselves. Time? Commander Lorne asked. 2 minutes, 17 seconds, an aide reported. The previous record was 8 minutes, 42 seconds. When the exercise concluded, the other cadets returned to their starting positions with various degrees of success. Several looked distinctly nauseated, while others showed the frustration typical of first-time zero-G training. As they exited the chamber, Drill Sergeant Cracks was waiting. His normally intimidating posture seemed subtly altered. His 4 legs, planted firmly but less aggressively, his upper body inclined slightly forward in what those familiar with his species might recognize as thoughtful curiosity. "Cadet Jack, remain," he ordered as the others filed out. When they were alone, Cracks studied the human silently for several seconds. "Your performance today was instructive," Cracks finally said. "You appear to treat gravity not as an obstacle, but as a tool." "All forces can be tools if understood properly, Drill Sergeant," Jack replied. "A principle your species seems to have embraced quite thoroughly," Cracks observed. "The Alliance has underestimated humanity's potential, I think." Jack remained respectfully silent. "Tell me," Cracks continued, his voice lower, almost conversational, "why did Earth wait 15 years after joining the Alliance to send someone like you to the Academy?" Jack considered the question carefully. "Preparation takes time, Drill Sergeant, especially when you're trying to catch up to civilizations with 1,000-year head starts. And now Earth feels prepared?" "Earth feels ready to contribute more actively to Alliance security," Jack corrected. "My presence here is part of that contribution." Cracks's mandibles clicked softly. "You're not just a student, are you? You're a demonstration." For the first time, Jack smiled slightly. "With respect, Drill Sergeant, I'm both. I have much to learn from the Alliance, and perhaps something to offer in return." The Academy's annual war games were approaching, a massive simulation exercise that pitted training squadrons against each other in complex tactical scenarios. Traditionally, first-year cadets were assigned subsidiary roles, while third- and fourth-year cadets took command positions. At the assignment ceremony, Commander Lorne addressed the assembled cadets. "This year's exercise will simulate the Rigelian border conflict of 2198, with adjustments to account for modern technology and tactics. Squadron assignments have been posted." A murmur swept through the gathering as cadets accessed their personal devices to check their roles. The ripple of surprise was palpable when they discovered that Jack had been assigned as tactical officer for Blue Squadron, a position normally reserved for advanced cadets. Trill, who had been assigned to the same squadron as a communications specialist, approached Jack after the ceremony. "This is unprecedented." Her translucent skin pulsed with excitement patterns. "First years never receive command staff positions." "It's just a training exercise," Jack replied modestly. "No, it's not just anything," Trill countered. "The Academy, instructors are testing you, and by extension testing human capabilities. The entire station is watching." Jack nodded thoughtfully. "Then we should give them something worth seeing." Blue Squadron's commanding officer was fourth-year Cadet Grell, a Procyon with a stellar academic record, but a notorious rigidity in tactical thinking. When Jack reported for the squadron's first planning session, Grell's fur rippled with barely contained displeasure. "I'm not sure what strings were pulled to get you this assignment, human," Grell said, towering over Jack, "but on my squadron we follow established protocols. Your role will be to relay my tactical decisions, not to improvise." "Understood, squadron leader," Jack replied, taking his position at the tactical station. As the planning session progressed, Jack remained silent, observing as Grell outlined a traditional approach to the scenario, a by-the-book strategy that any instructor could predict. Only when directly addressed did Jack offer input, and then only in the form of clarifying questions. After the session, Trill caught up with Jack in the corridor. "You're not going to challenge his strategy? It's predictable and inflexible. Exactly what you argued against in tactical class." "Squadron leader Grell has experience and authority," Jack replied carefully. "My role is to support his command. But, in my first week here," Jack interrupted gently, "Drill Sergeant Cracks taught us that a squadron functions as a unit, not as individuals seeking glory. The chain of command exists for a reason." Trill's bioluminescence dimmed slightly. in understanding. You're playing the long game. Jack merely smiled. The war games began 3 days later. 16 squadrons deployed into the massive simulation arena, a self-contained space that could reconfigure to represent various terrains and environments. Blue Squadron was assigned to defend a strategic communications relay against Red Squadron, commanded by the Academy's top-rated tactical student. As predicted, Red Squadron quickly identified the weaknesses in Grell's conventional defensive perimeter.
Their first assault nearly breached Blue Squadron's position, stopped only by desperate improvisation from several squad members during the engagement. Grell called his command staff had visibly
faltered. They've countered every standard approach, he admitted grudgingly. Suggestions? The other officers began proposing variations on conventional tactics. Jack remained silent until Grell finally turned to him. Tactical officer? Any input, or are you just here to observe our failure? Permission to speak freely, squadron leader? Jack requested. Granted. Grell sighed. We're fighting according to established doctrine, which makes us predictable, Jack began. Red Squadron knows every move in our playbook because they studied the same materials we did, but they don't know what they haven't seen before. What are you suggesting? Grell's ears twitched with interest despite his earlier hostility. Human approach, Jack said simply. In our military history, when faced with superior forces, we often employed asymmetric tactics, changing the nature of the engagement rather than meeting force with force. Explain, Grell ordered, now fully engaged. Jack quickly outlined a strategy that violated several established Alliance military protocols, a flexible defense that deliberately created apparent weaknesses while concealing unexpected strengths. It required precise coordination and split-second timing, but if executed correctly, it would present Red Squadron with a scenario they had never encountered in training. Grell was silent for a long moment after Jack finished. The other officers waited tensely for his response. It's unorthodox, he finally said, and risky. Yes, sir, Jack acknowledged. And brilliant, Grell added, his fur rippling in a pattern that indicated respect. We'll implement your strategy with one modification. You'll coordinate the defensive elements directly. I'll maintain overall command, but tactical control will be yours for this operation. When Red Squadron launched their next assault, they encountered a defense that seemed to collapse under pressure, only to discover they had been drawn into a carefully orchestrated trap. Blue Squadron's forces appeared to be scattered and retreating, but were actually maneuvering into precisely calculated positions that allowed for devastating crossfire and unexpected counterattacks. From the observation deck, Drill Sergeant Cracks watched with Commander Lorne as Blue Squadron not only repelled Red Squadron's attack, but managed to capture their command vessel in a daring boarding action that no cadet had ever attempted in the history of the war games. That, Commander Lorne observed, crystalline structure glittering with excitement, was not standard Alliance tactics. No, Cracks agreed, mandibles clicking rapidly. That was human tactics, adaptable, unpredictable, and devastatingly effective when properly applied. The question, Lorne mused, is whether such approaches can be taught to our other cadets, or if this is uniquely human. Cracks watched as Jack coordinated Blue Squadron's final maneuvers with calm precision. Perhaps that's exactly what humanity brings to the Alliance, not just their own strength, but the ability to teach us new ways of thinking. The graduation ceremony for fourth-year cadets brought distinguished visitors from across the Alliance to the Academy. Representatives from 24 member species filled the Grand Assembly Hall, their diverse physiologies creating a living mosaic of galactic civilization. Among them, a small human delegation stood out, not for their appearance but for the respectful distance other representatives maintained around them. Jack, now in his second year but invited to attend due to his extraordinary performance record, noticed the subtle shift in how the alien dignitaries regarded the humans. There was curiosity, yes, but also something new, a cautious respect that hadn't been present before. Your presence here has changed perceptions, Drill Sergeant Cracks commented, approaching Jack during the reception that followed the ceremony. The drill sergeant's normally intimidating demeanor had evolved over the past year, into something closer to mentorship. 14 new human cadets have applied for next year's class. The Admiralty has approved all of them. That's good news, Jack replied. Integration and cooperation strengthen the alliance. Indeed, Krax agreed, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. Though I suspect not all of these new cadets will have your specialized training. Jack smiled slightly. Some will, some won't. Earth believes in diversity of approach. Before Krax could respond, Commander Lorne approached, accompanied by Admiral Zenks, the highest-ranking Admiralty official present at the ceremony. Cadet Jack, Lorne's crystalline form shimmered with formal patterns. Admiral Zenks has expressed interest in meeting you. The Admiral, a Vexari whose species had been among the founding members of the Alliance 5 centuries earlier, studied Jack with multifaceted eyes that seemed to perceive spectrums beyond normal vision. Your performance records are most impressive, Admiral Zenks said, his resonant voice carrying harmonic undertones that conveyed sincerity. Particularly your innovations during the war games. The Admiralty has implemented several of your tactical approaches into our training protocols. I'm honored, Admiral, Jack replied. But the credit belongs to my squadron as well. They executed the strategies flawlessly. Modesty, the Admiral observed. Another human trait we find are surprising. Most species with your level of adaptability tend toward dominance behaviors. Jack considered this. Earth's history taught us that adaptation works best when coupled with cooperation. Neither trait alone is sufficient for long-term survival. A wise perspective, Admiral Zenks nodded. Which brings me to my purpose in seeking you out. The Admiralty is establishing a new division, Adaptive Tactical Response. We believe the Alliance faces emerging threats that conventional approaches may not address effectively. Your performance here suggests humanity has insights valuable to this initiative. Jack maintained a respectful expression, though this news confirmed what many at Earth's military command had suspected. The Alliance was finally recognizing humanity's potential contribution beyond mere numbers and resources. I would be honored to assist in any way possible, Admiral, Jack replied. Excellent. Upon completion of your academy training, you'll be offered a position with the new division. In the meantime, the Admiral's voice lowered slightly. I understand Earth is expanding its Adaptive Response Initiative program? Yes, Admiral. The program has proven successful. The Alliance would welcome the opportunity to send observers to learn from your methods, Admiral Zenks said carefully. A cultural exchange, if you will. Jack nodded. I believe Earth would welcome such cooperation. Adaptation is, after all, about incorporating new perspectives. After the Admiral moved on to speak with other guests, Drill Sergeant Krax turned to Jack. You knew this would happen, didn't you? From the moment you arrived at the Academy, this was the intended outcome. Not exactly, Jack admitted. We hope to demonstrate human potential, yes. But this level of interest exceeds our expectations. Krax's compound eyes studied Jack carefully. 1 year ago, I saw you as an anomaly, a single human who somehow defied conventional limitations. Now I understand you were merely the first wave. Not a wave, Drill Sergeant, Jack corrected gently. A bridge. Humanity doesn't seek to overwhelm the Alliance, but to strengthen it. Our adaptability complements the specialized capabilities of other species, and in the process, secures humanity's place among the stars, Krax observed without accusation. Survival and cooperation aren't mutually exclusive, Jack replied. They're interdependent. Earth learned that lesson through centuries of internal conflict before we reached the stars. Krax's mandibles clicked in what Jack had come to recognize as thoughtful agreement. A lesson some Alliance species are only beginning to understand, despite their technological advantages. As the reception continued around them, Jack gazed out the viewport at the vast starfield beyond. A year ago, he had arrived at the Academy as a test case, Earth's carefully calculated demonstration of human potential. Now he stood at the beginning of something far more significant. Humanity's true integration into the galactic community, not as junior partners, but as valued equals. What happens next? Drill Sergeant Krax asked, following Jack's gaze to the stars. When the rest of the Alliance fully grasps what humanity brings to the table? Jack smiled. Progress, Drill Sergeant. Rapid, unprecedented progress. When species with thousand-year histories of specialization combine their knowledge with human adaptability, the possibilities are astronomical. And the threats? Krax pressed. The galaxy contains dangers even the Alliance hasn't encountered yet. That's precisely why we need each other, Jack replied. No single approach, no matter how specialized or adaptable, can prepare us for everything waiting out there. In the center of the reception hall, Admiral Zenks was now engaged in animated discussion with the human diplomatic delegation. Several other high-ranking Alliance officials had joined them, creating what was clearly the focal point of the gathering. I never thought I'd see this, Krax admitted. When you first stood on my training ground, I saw only a soft-skinned biped with delusions of adequacy. Now the Admiralty itself reorganizes based on human tactical innovations. First impressions can be misleading, Jack said with a slight smile, especially across species. Krax straightened to his full height, assuming the formal posture of his kind. Cadet Jack, it has been my honor to serve as your drill instructor. I expect reports of your continued success. Jack snapped to perfect attention, offering the traditional Academy salute. The honor has been mine, Drill Sergeant. Your challenges pushed me to excel. As Krax moved away to speak with newly graduated officers, Commander Lorne approached Jack once more.
I've just received word. The command structure pulsed with excitement frequencies. The Accounting Board has approved a new training protocol based on human adaptive techniques. They're calling it the Integrated Response
Methodology. You've been requested as a consultant during your academic breaks. Jack nodded. I'll be happy to assist, Commander. You've started something remarkable here, Lorne observed. In all my years at the Academy, I've never seen a first-year cadet influence training doctrine. I merely demonstrated what humans have always done, Commander. Adapt to challenges and find solutions where others see only obstacles. As the ceremony drew to a close, Jack found himself standing between worlds. The Academy that had tested him and the future that his success had helped create. Somewhere on Earth, the fourth cohort of the Adaptive Response Initiative was already training, preparing for their own journeys to Academy worlds across the Alliance. The galaxy was vast and filled with wonders and dangers beyond imagination. But for the first time since joining the galactic community, humanity had proven they belonged among the stars not as followers, but as pioneers. Their unique adaptability, transforming initial skepticism into profound respect. And it had begun with a single moment, when an alien drill sergeant froze in awe at a human cadet's lightning-fast success. The end.